This is Profit from the Inside with Joel Block. Insights to give your business the inside track. And now, here's your host, Joel Block.
Is my marketing working? Can I believe the pipeline reports that my sales department is giving to me? And will the pipeline materialize as we hope? I wonder all these questions. And to address these issues, Mike Farrell. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, these are serious issues that executives at many levels in all kinds of companies worry about. And I do too. I mean, you see these reports, but just because somebody's in the pipeline doesn't mean that they're going to come out the other end. And just yesterday, I was talking to a guy and a bunch of people gave him people they know. And my question was, well, just because they know him, what does it have to do with them being anything interested in you? So, and anyway, how do you deal with these kind of things?
Well, yeah, it's all of our clients, this is our constituency, the sales leaders and marketing leaders in high tech firms. So, the measuring thing being, having KPIs, key performance indicators that, being as much data driven as you can will help you. But selling, you're still selling to people, right? So there's still a human element to it, but you try to get as much data as possible to really understand and get your business as predictable as possible. So it's taking sales and marketing from an art and bringing some science into it. Right?
One thing I always wonder is, do people try and make an art too scientific? I mean, these reports, garbage in, garbage out, and how accurate are these reports going to be? How predictive are these reports going to be? Our primary discussion is not going to be about data here, but to what extent can we really rely on the data that gets put in these reports? I mean, aren't they subject to human interference?
Yeah, but from a trend perspective, as you collect data and compile it and build trends, right, you're going to get more confidence in that. In sales, in the world of sales and marketing, it can be a numbers game, right? It's the number of engagements you have with a client, number of conversations you have with a client. You can, if you start collecting that data and looking at it over the long haul, you can definitely see where your dollar investments are paying off, and which ones aren't. So
I guess as I sit here and think about it, that if your trend line says that 80% or 60% or 40% is going to close, over the long term, it does. That doesn't mean it's accurate quarter to quarter, day by day, week to week, but over time, so there could be some bunching. Some things could bunch up in one quarter or show up in another quarter. But I guess over time, that's what happens. So what do you do with companies? Tell us exactly what it is you do.
So we're a market. Green Leads is a marketing agency that works with high tech firms to help drive their pipeline, accelerate their pipeline, drive top of the funnel pipeline, and bottom of the funnel pipeline. So we do lead generation. We'll take their marketing content and promote it out to the audience to generate awareness and generate some demand. And that gets nurtured through the marketing application they have, whether it's Marketo or Pardot or any of the others, until it's those prospects can be ready for a sales conversation. Then we have people on the phones. We actually do the outbound calling on behalf of clients. So the outbound cold calling, and it takes a lot of discipline and a lot of focus with those outbound calls nowadays. It's not like it was 10 or 15 years ago where you make 5 phone calls, get a person on the phone. That's not what it is anymore. So it takes that focused person. So if someone's looking for new accounts, generating new logos for clients, you really have to have that discipline in your company, or you have to find a company like me that can do it for you.
Most companies that are most of the companies that listen to this show, they're middle-sized companies. They're pretty good size. They probably have their own sales and marketing departments. They are probably doing a lot of this. So where exactly do you fit? I mean, if they already have their own sales department who are supposed to be making phone calls, and they've already got their own marketing department, which is supposed to be creating some awareness. So when the people call, they're kind of better off. How do you plug yourself into companies that already have existing infrastructure?
Sure. On the marketing side, I mean, marketing departments and people, they use outside vendors. They'll come up with new marketing concepts and so forth and use outside vendors for a number of things, right? To write content, white papers, ebooks, case studies, to do events, webinars, other virtual events now in the era of COVID, mostly virtual. And then there's all the digital aspect in advertising you do. So again, drive awareness, drive demand, create leads for the sales team. All right. So we're an augmentation to that. So we'll take your content, we'll promote it and generate leads, and through landing pages and where they can download that content. So that's the lead generation business. And then the sales, the sales team, if they're not generating enough appointments on their own to create new pipeline opportunities, then there's numbers, I know that the numbers of phone calls it takes now to get a person on the phone is about 30.
Yeah, I believe that. I sure
All right.
do.
So it takes focused time to do that. So we have people, business development reps, that just do that all day long, and they do 200 calls a day, to get 8 or 10 conversations. So that's what it takes.
Do you, a couple of things. One, do you use automation in those phone calls, or is it all real people dialing the phone?
Yeah, both, right? So we have a power dialer software. So the first thing we do is create that, really curate that list of highly targeted companies and contacts that, the right contact for the client, right? Whatever product we're pitching. We may be calling IT, we might be calling marketing, we might be calling HR, an HR leader, whatever the product is geared towards. And then we curate that list, load it into our power dialer, and then the power dialer is serving up a call one after another, unless you hit the pause. So you bring in technology in it. There's integration with emailing and texting now, so we can have a multi-channel or omni-channel kind of outreach to these prospects.
Do you find that what you're talking about, these companies that engage you to help them, that maybe they're not generating enough phone calls or enough numbers, or they're not doing this good enough? Do you find that executives, when you point out, hey, listen, this part of your team isn't doing that great, why don't we provide a little bit of extra support for that department? Do you find they get a little bristly and they don't like being told that something's not going good? Or do they say, you know what, it's good that we isolated the problem, let's provide more support over there?
Yeah, I mean, if a leader if the business is not getting the results it wants in this, from a sales perspective, a pipeline perspective, you really got to go backwards. Are we doing the right activities? Are we doing enough of the right activities? And what I mean, it's you're still selling people to people, but you got to have conversations. Are you having enough conversations to hit your goals? Right? And most companies don't measure that. Are we having enough sales conversations? Is our sales team talking to the right people at the right numbers based on our conversion metrics to hit our goals? And most companies don't have visibility to that. And certainly most CEOs don't.
One of the things that I've noticed, it seems like 25 years ago, sales was very, very different from now.
Oh, yeah.
When I was selling, it was brute force. I would dial on the phone. I would hustle my way into somebody's office. I would tell them my story. I'd sing and dance and do everything I had to do to get them to say yes and give me some money. I mean, that's what selling was back then. It seems like now, you have all these affiliate relationships and all these different multi-channel this and that, and you've got different ways of finding people on the internet. You can advertise on Facebook. And I mean, it just seems like there's 100 different things and it's really changed. And how are companies doing adapting to the new world, really?
Yeah, it's gotten very, very complicated. We're in the B2B space versus the consumer space, but so it's the consumer has got a whole different ecosystem than B2B for doing that. So even in B2B, it's in my career, it's totally different. The pandemic threw everyone for a loop. You had to we're a remote company, so I have people on the phones all over the country and sometimes other countries, but we had to. It was hard. There was nobody manning the front desk when we were calling into a main switchboard, right?
Oh, it's in the last year and a half, yeah, for sure. I mean,
So
that must have been even worse. But
we had to augment our data with a lot of cell phone data. Right. So now you're calling, a lot of times you're calling someone's cell phone.
Yeah, but a cell phone, now you're inside their world. I mean, you get their cell phone, that's pretty good, right? I mean, which is very hard to get. People kind of keep that to themselves, although they've kind of loosened up a little bit, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times they're forwarding, they've in the work from home world, right? They forwarded their office phone to a cell phone, so it's everything's blended together now.
Yeah. So, let's talk about some of the differences between, what companies that are 50 years old, and a lot of these middle-sized companies are 50 years old. They were started a long time ago. They're successful. They're family run, whatever. There have been multiple generations of people, whatever the arrangement is. But the world has really started to change. And a lot of the techniques, I just know for myself, a lot of what I did, to raise capital and do things that I did over many years is really different because, the use of computers and the internet and advertisements, whether it's B2B or B2C, lots of new avenues are open. So let's talk about what some new avenues are, what companies can be doing, what they're not doing, and why they should be doing some new stuff. And if they don't have it internally, why they need to go outside to get it.
Yeah, you're right. There's enormous amount. I think in the last 10 years that it's enormous amount of innovation that's happened. New software applications. The world of SaaS software, where you don't have to have a server in your closet and go buy some shrink wrap software and load it on the server and all that stuff. It's like, okay, I'll buy it, slap it on a credit card, buy some licenses, slap it on a credit card. Boom! Everyone gets a login. You're in business, right? So. The speed of innovation, the speed to automate is there. So digital transformation is really kind of a buzzword, and it's all about using a lot of these software as a service, SaaS application. There's every month there's hundreds of new ones that are getting launched, right? That are trying to automate and kind of fix inefficiencies in the business world, whether it's in the sales side of business, the marketing side, the HR side, the finance side. Automation is happening across every aspect of a company. Manufacturing, we have clients that we've done business with that are in the manufacturing space. Automation is, there's automation being put in place for everything, and artificial intelligence being put in place for everything. So so it really has to be there has to be someone in your company, even a company of $50 million. There has to be someone in your company who's that digital transformation person, who's looking, where can we innovate? Where can we get more efficient? Instead of just throwing bodies at things or buying a new machine, or where can we drive efficiencies?
The funny thing, the dirty little secret about companies is that they don't have a lot of time or resources to just have somebody looking around and keeping an eye on the horizon. I mean, they're pretty busy, looking down at what they got to be doing. They keep their head down and they just work hard. And they really have a hard time doing both the short term and the long term and keeping an eye on the whole environment. And I guess that's probably one of the reasons that they bring in consultants and they bring in outsiders who have a different kind of perspective from time to time, because they really are in a heads down mode so often. And what you're talking about keeping an eye on all these different technologies that are coming on at the rate of hundreds of them a day, and that's a mind-boggling number, but it's probably true. So let's just give us some examples of some cool things that maybe companies aren't aware of or that they're not doing. Any thoughts on it?
Well, I mean, one of the things that we've done over the last couple of year and a half, is there's in the world of marketing, B2B marketing, there's something called intent data, right? Wouldn't you like to know, Joel, wouldn't you like to know who's interested in your product right now, right? And that's every sales and marketing person's dream, right? Who's interested in your product right now? So intent data is where, we are all putting digital fingerprints out every time we touch a web browser, right? We Google something, we go to LinkedIn, we read an article online, right? Our digital fingerprints are there. Now, and then based on who we are and our job function in the business world, that sends a digital signal that I'm interested in this topic, right? So if I read an article about, supply chain efficiencies and using AI in supply chain, and I happen to be a VP of supply chain, okay, now whoever's marketing, whoever has a product offering for that has to do with AI involved in supply chain, they would love to know that I'm reading an article about that, right? So this intent platform that we use allows us to harvest all that information. So now I know who I can call, right? Now I know who I can call that might be interested. They may be in the buyer's journey, they may be not in the buyer's journey, but it's certainly a better, it's what I call it is, if anybody out there, a fisherman, you go out in a boat, especially if you're going in the ocean, right? You go out in a boat, you got a little sonar system. It's a fish finder, right? So you know where the fish are, right? Rather than fishing in the whole ocean, I'm going to have a fish finder find out where the fish are, and that's what this intent data does. So we can run that kind of application platforms for our clients, and then we can get that contact information. Then we can go market to them and call them, and it's pretty incredible.
What a great concept! The concept of a fish finder, the sonar for fish. I mean, that's a great analogy. I wonder if people who are just purists about fishing think that sonar is like cheating, right? But in business, it's not cheating. In fact, it's the opposite. You're an idiot if you don't use these tools. I mean, because all your competitors are using these tools, and if you're not using these tools, and if you don't know how to use these tools, and you need to engage with people who know how to use these tools. Very good friend of mine was doing a program where they were doing conversions of a certain kind of legacy software into something else. And he found this database that had all these people one of the 58 different fields that they had was what kind of software they used, and he sorted by this kind of software that was going out of business, and these people all had this certain problem, and he reached out to him, and his business has exploded because he's calling exactly the right people. And when you stop and think about it, if the tool exists and you aren't using it, then you're wasting time every single time you're calling somebody who is not qualified.
Yep. Yeah. It's making you're empowering the salespeople to be smarter, right? Use this technology. So, there's not enough good salespeople out there, right? That's one of the job functions in this economy. There's more sales jobs out there than there are people that want to do sales and are good at it. And so you got to you bring technology to leverage your staff and make them more efficient and make them better.
Well, the other thing is that you're talking about taking some of the mundane out of their job, because
Yes.
and taking a middle level person and giving them the ability to be a high level person and be extremely efficient, very effective, very productive, because they're not doing a lot of the mundane kind of work at the bottom that they would, the kind of the sorting and the sifting and sorting that they would otherwise have to do. So
yeah, and I tell you, when we get on the phone, when we follow up on these intent leads, very often we get, hey, it's funny you're and we can tailor our introduction. Hey, we're calling people that are looking at blah blah blah, right? So you tailor it, and then they said, well, it's funny you're calling because we've been talking about this, or I just read an article about this, right? Are you a mind reader, right? You get those kind of comments.
I'll tell you what, when somebody says that to me, I kind of make a little joke and I say, I'm very telepathic and I just had a feeling. So I called you, and then we laugh and they know it's not true, but it's kind of funny, and
that's a good icebreaker. I'm telepathic because it's going to get a laugh every time.
And they all know it's not true, although maybe once in a while they don't know it's true. I don't know what they know, but it's a good way to kind of, hey, listen, I mean, every single time we all have software, every one of us, that says, Bill, just open your email. Now, that doesn't mean Bill's interested in your email, but it might mean something. At least Bill's thinking about you and your company, or Mary just did this, or Sally just did that. And then, now you have more information than you had before. So, my concern for companies, especially a lot of these bigger, older line companies, they just aren't using these tools.
Yeah.
So, like, where do they go to get these tools? Like, what kind of tools are they? Where do they get this kind of information? How can they supplement what they're already doing with some of these tools?
Well, I'm sure the leaders in each of their departments, right? Whether it's, finance, HR, manufacturing, sales. I mean, clearly sales and marketing people have to be, obviously that's what my pedigree is, and that's what my business is, right? So sales and marketing people have to be on the cutting edge of this stuff.
Let's stay with sales and marketing.
But across the board, there's innovation and all those, even accounts payable, right? Boring, routine, blah, blah, blah. There's new software applications to make that more efficient. Right, there is.
Let's stay on sales and marketing, because I like sales and marketing too, and I think most of our people, I mean, that kind of spins the spins the wheel, so to speak. So
yes, it does.
What kinds of tools, if you could just name a couple of them, provide this kind of visibility into what a customer might be thinking, what their inclinations might be, and so forth?
Well, I mean, on the obviously we talked about the intent data platform that we use. There's also anything that to do with online advertising and redirecting. All the marketing people typically know about that. If anybody has, most companies have sellers, right? That and nowadays they're on the phone more than they are face to face. They're all using Zoom like this, but there's a software applications out there called conversational intelligence. What is conversational intelligence? It's recording our call, but it's annotating along that call it's using artificial intelligence, machine learning. Where are the missed opportunities on that call from a sales perspective? And there's now technology that's called guided selling, where it can serve up a little word bubble that say this, because it's picking up on words, right? Machine language. It's picking up on words and phrases and helping a salesperson through a sales conversation. So I've used a company called ExecVision, and this is one of the big three in this conversational intelligence space. And it even measures how much talking did you do versus the prospect versus the customer. If you spoke for 45 minutes and they spoke for 10 minutes, was that a good sales call?
That is not a good ratio.
Yeah. So, but from a coaching perspective, right? Especially if you got a salesperson that's in a slump or whatever, not performing well, but they used to be a good performer, right? Do you want to fire that person, or do you want to figure out? It's like game film, right? If I'm a baseball fan, whatever, football Monday, what happens on Monday? They all go look at film, right? Baseball, the guys in a slump, they go look at their swing and they just tweak a mechanical thing here and there, and boom, they're hitting again. So, but sales has never had that until now. Never has had that until now.
Yeah, is that, I actually do look at some of those numbers. I look at those ratios, for this podcast typically, and for other things. I mean, I kind of have some ratios that I like to, shoot for personally, that I kind of work toward. And I'm a believer in that sort of thing, because, if you're not getting it right on the front end, you're not going to get what you want on the back end. And that's these things kind of all work together. Well, listen, Mike, this is, we always look for the inside track, and this has certainly been the inside track on certain new kinds of selling, automation techniques, data-driven kinds of stuff. And, there are people who have the best, smartest, and fastest way to get things done. And certainly you've brought that to the table for us here today. So for that, we thank you and appreciate having you on the show.
All right. Appreciate it, Joel. Happy to be here.
Nice to have you.
You've been listening to Profit from the Inside with Joel Block. For more insights and to learn more, visit joelblock.com.
How about a shout out and a huge thanks to our podcast show producer, David Wolf, and the team at 802 Studios. Profit from the Inside wouldn't be possible without these wonderful professionals. To learn more or to find out how you can launch and produce your own podcast show, reach out to www.audivita.com. That's AUDIVITA.com.